Alright, today is December 30th, 2017, a little after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This will probably be the last video for this year. The biggest thing I wanted to hit on today was, wow, thank you everybody for subscribing. This last week or so, I went over 100 subscribers. Actually, it happened 2 or 3 times probably because somebody unsubscribed and then somebody else subscribed. So, because I saw 100 and then I went back next day and I saw 99. And then I got an email from YouTube that says, congratulations, you made 100. And then the next day it was 99, and then I went back again and saw 100. So a couple times I did a screenshot on my phone just to remember that I did actually hit 100. So that's cool. I don't really feel like I have a platform here. At the moment I've got school bus, which is over there. I got the truck camper. I've got this little ranch that I'm living on. I'm off-grid. I'm doing solar panels. I'm doing kind of the off-grid lifestyle. Before that, I did some motorcycling stuff. I rode my motorcycle from Canada up into Alaska and Northwest Territories and the Yukon Territories. Went past the Arctic Circle. Then I rode all the way down, ended up, well, eventually I moved to Texas on the motorcycle. Then I sold the motorcycle, and then a few years later I bought another one. So, you know, I've got a lot of different things, and that's kind of my platform is not having a platform, I feel like, right now. I've got a lot of different things that kind of tell my story. And so that's kind of what this channel is about lately, is all the little things that come together. If you're here just to see the school bus stuff, you're not going to see much more on the school bus. It's still going to be here, but I'm not really doing anything else to it. It was just a simple thing to live in. I've actually lived in it longer than I expected, and the way it's looking right now, I'm probably going to live in it until sometime this coming spring to summer. I'm thinking probably by May I'll be out of the school bus. In the last few months, I've been living in the truck during the week, and then coming back here to the ranch. And in the last month or so, when I come to the ranch, I still sleep in the truck. I moved my bed into here, so the bed that I sleep in is in the truck now, and I don't sleep in the bus anymore. Now that could change again, probably will. The way my life is, it's hard to say. You know, this is what I'm going to do. I'll make a list of all the things I'm going to do. My life changes so quickly, and it's some of it is my planning or my lack of planning. Some of it is outside forces. Some of it is opportunities that come along, or situation change, or you just get bored of something. So I have some ideas for what I want to do in the next year, and so if you are subscribed, this is what direction I'm probably going to go. You'll see some of it. If you're not subscribed, this might be a time to think about, yes, you'd like to subscribe. And kind of a little bit of my goals and my plans for this next year. So projects that you'll probably see. I'm currently in the process of digging a hole, which I believe will probably end up about 5,000 gallons. So my plan there is I'm going to make I'm going to start with the small one to test the process, but my plan is I want to see if I can build a water tank out of concrete. Okay. And I got some ideas for that, but basically, I believe it's called Faro cement. And the idea is you mix up cement or mortar, and so not very rocky, more sandy cement, so you don't have a lot of heavy gravel in it. And then you using, and I don't really know the words for this, I'm the expert who I learned everything on YouTube, so you know, if you watch the same video I watched, you'll probably know what I know. The project started when I saw a video of some guys that I believe were probably in like Cambodia, Vietnam. It looked like that part of the country, but I've never been there, so I can't say for sure. Could have been the Philippines, you know, whatever. That part of the world kind of looks the same to us Westerners, so my apologies if somebody knows where this video was shot, and you know, if I can remember where I found it, I would link it. If I can find it, I'll link it. But the basic process, they poured concrete pad first, and they had like 2 or 3 different ratios that they used. So the pad was more traditional concrete with rebar, and let that set up. And when they were making the pad, they put the rebar in and had some risers coming up. Then they did rings out of rebar and made a frame, and then they wrapped chicken wire around that frame. Then they mixed up a thinner set of concrete, more like mortar from my understanding, a little more sand, a little less gravel, and they layered that up probably 2 or 3 layers thick, so that it was in the end probably 3 to 4 inches thick. Formed it to a tapered top, and then they made a concrete lid for it, and they showed the process of that. But finishing it then with a really thin skim coat of more of a really watery looking concrete, just cement and water mix, it looked like. That was enough to seal it. After it cured for about a week, it held water. So the idea was for them is chicken wire and rebar and cement mix are fairly easy to come by even in remote parts of the country. Whereas getting a pre-made polyurethane tank, not as easy for them apparently. The obvious solution is just, sell a few chickens and go buy a water tank. Well, maybe you'd have to sell a goat, I don't know. But what caught my eye of the whole process is it looked like it would be scalable. And I can't really, the size of the water tank I would like to build is bigger than I could really haul with my truck, even if I take the camper shell off. I really want to build a big tank. And my thinking is, in the spring and summer here, we had the monsoon season. And don't quote me on the months because I really don't remember, but I think it was May, June, and July. We started seeing a lot of rain. And I've seen some other videos, including Homestead Economics. Link to him if I can, when I remember it. But he had a water catchment system on his place that went through a series of tanks. It caught all the water off of his roof on his house. And from what he was saying is he had enough water catchment in their monsoon season to last them through their year. Okay, and that was with a family, a wife and 1 or 2 kids, I think. So I use a lot less water than a family of 4 does. So I'm like, okay, maybe not right away, but by the 2nd or 3rd year, I should be able to set it up to the point where I can catch enough water here to not have to haul water. Okay. Currently, I'm getting water from town. It's about 15 miles one way, bumpy road, and I'm paying like $42, $43 a month for basically unmetered. I mean, it's, what's the word? It's not the best word, but my account at $43, that actually includes trash. So it's $20 some for water and then another $18 or $20 for the use of the landfill, basically. So once a week I take out my trash. I've got about 1 bag a week right now. And then I go in for water, and I don't even go in for water every week lately because I'm spending most of my time in town. Well, I'm just hauling water jugs. I don't get 50 gallons at a time. It's less than 50 gallons, and I don't go every week. So maybe I, at the most, let's say I use 500 gallons a month. I'm nowhere near that. But let's say I use 500 gallons a month. I'm allowed to have 2,000 or 2,500. I can never remember. So if I use 2,500 gallons a month, I'm on the base charge, and then they go up from there. Well, there's no lower limit, right? So I don't have an option for 500 gallons a month. Looking, there's a bee flying next to me, and it's the end of December. You gotta love that. I grew up in Canada, and they're dealing with some very cold temperatures at the moment. I'm sitting out here in my t-shirt, so yay for that. Anyway, so my thinking is, okay, water tank, if I can build any kind of a water tank right now and get it to hold water and catch some water that comes off of a roof. At the moment, all I've got is a school bus, so one of the projects is I'm going to put eave troughs on the school bus, channel that into a couple trash cans that I've got, and I've had them for a while. So catch some water, goes in the trash can, fill up the trash can. I can take showers for well, I'm using less than 5 gallons. I'm usually about 3 gallons per shower because I just spray off, kind of a Navy style shower. Get wet, shut the water off, soap up, lather up, rinse off. I can get really clean on 3 gallons. I think the bucket holds 2.5. It's not very much water. Trash can is 25 gallons, so that's between 5 and 10 showers per trash can. Okay. And there's obviously there's math formulas. How many? Say if you got an inch of rain and your roof area is 10 feet by 30 feet. That's little. The bus is a little less than that. Okay, you can figure out how many gallons of water you could catch off of that area. Next project, I want to do kind of a sloped roof off the side of the bus on one side just for some shade. And that'll cover my workbenches out here. Okay, put eave troughs on or gutters on that, catch more water then. So then I'd have the school bus and more roof area. Okay. The amount of rain that we had this last year really opened my eyes, because before that I had no idea we got rain out here. I mean, when I registered the property to get my 911 address, one of the things that the lady in the office did was to look up my property on their map that showed the flood areas. And I was like, what do you mean flood areas? It's a desert. They're like, oh yeah, we have flash flooding out here. And I'd been in California and I remembered flash flooding from out there, but there's a lot of green here. But I'm like, what do you mean flash flooding? It's a desert. I just couldn't comprehend that. And then that week, where all of a sudden, holy cow, the first storm hit, and I had inches of water running across here. I'm like, flash flooding. Now I know. Anyhow, so I'm like, realistically, it should not be difficult to catch 3 or 4 or 5,000 gallons worth of water. Okay, with a little bit of water treatment and filtering, at the amount I use now, that would last me the whole year. Okay. Well, if I can quit hauling water at $43 a month, that just goes down to your bottom line on your budget. It's like you're spending $43 a month for water, but you're only using a small portion of what they're giving you. Now, I could go haul 2,000 gallons a month. I'm not using it. I don't have the tanks to do that. That's wear and tear on the truck going down the road, right? Also, I'm looking at how can I reduce my footprint overall. Okay. I'm driving this full-size 4x4 truck back and forth to El Paso. It's about 100 miles one way. That's ridiculous. I'm living by myself. I don't need a full-size truck. The 4x4 is nice because the first 10 miles of road are gravel, and that's where I have the worst problems. Once I get past that, I'm fine. The motorcycle is great for that. But when I decided to start living in the truck, I can't sleep on the motorcycle during the week. So that was kind of like, well, I'll start driving the truck. And I realized that I was spending less money driving the truck because I drove it once a week. If I drove the motorcycle, I drove it every day. So, go figure, About 40 miles to the gallon versus 13, but you figure it out. If you drive this one day instead of 5 days, plus 2 hours each way, I was getting all that time back by driving the truck. Now I can live in town, take a hot shower at the gym, go hang out at the library, use some free Wi-Fi. So in a lot of respects, my life is a little bit better now because I got that time back. But looking at reducing my footprint, some ideas that I'm looking at. Could I live with something like a little teardrop trailer? Would still give me enough room for the bed to sleep in, and I have a little area in the back that I could cook my oatmeal in and stuff like that. So I've been kind of playing with some ideas, and I don't know that any of these are going to happen this year or ever, but one idea was if I had a smaller car that got better mileage and then could pull just a little tiny teardrop trailer just big enough to sleep in, and I could build the trailer, or get something like a station wagon that I could then sleep in the back of the station wagon, would get 25 miles per gallon instead of 13. So that was an idea I had. I used to have an Astra van that got 20 miles per gallon, would have been fine, So that's one way to go. Other projects here that we're looking at. When I started digging the water tank, I hadn't really thought about this so much, and I was nervous. Earlier, before I moved out here, my idea was to dig a hole and put the house underground, because if you're in the ground, it's much cooler in the summer and much warmer in the winter. You get out of the wind, you get out of the sun exposure during the summer. Even a 5 foot deep hole, and then you're encased in dirt, is much more thermally, efficient. Okay. Well, then I saw the flooding, and I'm like, screw that, I'll be, floating. Didn't want to do that, but then I got to thinking about it again, and I saw some videos, and one again was Homestead Economics. He had built an in-ground greenhouse where he was down probably waist level. From the video, it looked like he was about waist level deep, so it wasn't really deep. But he could walk down a center part, and then the shelves were dug into the ground. Right? And somebody had commented, and this was one of his videos, somebody had commented that, you're going to fill up with water. And he said he didn't really have a problem. He's catching enough water off of his roofs to live the year without hauling water. And yet his greenhouse didn't fill up. And mainly because it was on a higher part of ground, and so water didn't tend to run into it. So I'm like, okay. And that got me thinking about underground again. So one of the things that I want to test, I've been thinking about geodesic domes. That is and was the plan for this year. It never happened. Well, I will build at least one, and I'm considering doing that same ferro cement idea as what I talked about for the water tank. So if I can build a fairly thin concrete shell geodesic dome as my first quote-unquote semi-permanent home to live in out here, that'll get me out of the school bus. Then I can use the bus for storage. Okay. Well, then I got to thinking about it. It's like, well, if I could build that down in the ground and just have the top of the roof exposed, so I'd have some daylight, and kind of do it like an igloo, where you got like, the round dome of an igloo and then the tunnel coming out. We'll make the tunnel where the stairs are, so you kind of come down into it. I don't have enough of a slope here where I could build it into the side of a hill or anything, but if I could build it on basically high ground and then haul dirt and kind of cover it, so I had, maybe a foot of dirt on the outside of it, that gives you some thermal break. You're out of the wind. Okay. Wintertime, it's a lot easier to keep it warm because you're out of the wind and you're down in the dirt. I forget the numbers exactly, but if you're 10 feet below the surface, it stabilizes at about 50 degrees. Okay, 50 is kind of cold, but if it's 30 degrees outside and you're 50 degrees inside, it's a lot easier to warm it from 50 to 60 than it is to go from 30 to 60. So far, the coldest I've seen here has been low 30s, maybe high 20s. So just right around freezing. I've seen frost a couple times, but I've never seen my water freeze yet. Now, I've only been out here since May. But last spring, I did see some frost in the morning, and I've seen a couple of days here where it was a little bit frosty already in, this fall, winter now. But, I'm not looking at minus 30, minus 40 like when I grew up in Canada. So, excuse me. Anyway, so probable projects for this next year. And the order changes as the wind blows, and the wind does blow. The water tank, that should be a good project. And I'll start off with a smaller one first. What I'm thinking is build a water tank around one of the trash cans and use the trash can as a liner just to test the process out. What's it like to make something out of concrete? Is it something I can do easily? I've done a little bit of concrete work in the past, so I know I can figure it out. It's just, is it worth the trouble kind of thing? Or should I just say, no, I'll just go buy a tank and be done with it? Because you can buy tanks that I could haul in the truck and, over, a couple of years, buy a few of them, link them together. That might be a better option. I don't know. Um, build the first dome. I'd like to build the first one down into the ground a little bit at least, and test that out before I go building a bunch of stuff, just to see, is it going to flood? Is that going to be a problem? You know, if it floods, then maybe that'll be the second water tank. You know, I don't know. Let's see what else. For digging and building, I've been looking at things like backhoes. You can rent one, but it's, you know, a few $100s a week or more. I'd have to haul it 100 miles to get it out here, down a bumpy road. I could do it. Something like that, it would sure be a lot nicer to have one here that you could use whenever you needed it. I don't have the funding right now to go buy a backhoe. However, I've been looking at building a backhoe. And I've got a little bit of a background with things like making stuff, welding, and I worked on hydraulics when I was in the Navy, so on airplanes. So, you know, I look at that, I'm like, okay, I could probably figure this out. And if you look at some, there's a lot of people that have built a backhoe, and it's, you know, simple geometry and buying the right parts and bolting it together and welding some pieces. So that's an option. It may happen. Another project that I'm looking at is, at the moment I've got two generators, one that smokes pretty bad, and then I bought a new one. And I've been playing with the idea of building a modular power pack system kind of thing. And part of this ties into the backhoe and tractor idea. There was a open source tractor project, and I'll post the link if I can remember exactly where it was. It might be just something simple like open source tractor. But what they came up with was a system where you built the frame of a tractor, had a modular cube power pack, and then you take the motor and you build it into this frame that was the right size for that cube. So you'd have a motor that bolts onto the frame, and then you'd have it run a hydraulic pump. And I think the one that I remember was, it was actually driven by hydraulics, so hydrostatic driving. So your motor turns your hydraulic pump, which goes down to the wheel where the hydraulic motor is, and so that just turns and you drive. Well, what got me thinking is the generator sits there the last weekend before I didn't use it at all, and then weekend before that I used it for a while to recharge the batteries, but then it just mostly sits there. So you get this, you know, really good gas motor and a generator that's just not doing anything. So what got me excited when I was looking at it is the open source idea. You take your motor and you build a cube frame, and then that can attach to something else. So it's not just sitting there running the generator, because when it's not running the generator, it's not doing anything. So I came up with, you know, I was looking at some ideas that I had, and, you know, you've got, like, for instance, an air compressor. They make some really nice gas-powered air compressors, but they're like $1,000 and up. It's a lot of money. Well, that same motor on the air compressor could be running your generator. You could turn an alternator, which would be a really fast way to recharge your batteries. It'd be like your truck, you know, and just you're using your truck to start, you know, to jump start your batteries. So you got your battery, your motor, and your alternator. Okay. A 5 or 10 horsepower motor would turn an alternator just fine. And then it's just a matter of adjusting your speed to get a decent power range. Okay. So you'd have an air compressor, an alternator, take the head off the generator that works, because the generator still works, it's just that the motor smokes. So if I got a new motor, I could still use it for the generator, but it could also be running an air compressor and an alternator and a hydraulic pump. So I could take that same motor cube, link it to a hydraulic pump, either directly or belt driven, and use that to run the backhoe. When I'm not using the backhoe, I could be using it to run the air compressor. When I'm not using the air compressor, it could be running the generator. Okay? And if you start looking at things modular like that, all of a sudden you could do a self-propelled generator, you know. Why not have the generator charging the battery that then drives the electric motor that drives your buggy around, okay? So, you know, say if you're going to build a gate, jump on this thing, drive it down to the gate, Generator can run the welder. The air compressor and the generator would run your plasma cutter. You got power, you got lights, you got everything you need. And then you drive it home again. You know, so instead of spending $1,000 or more on a ATV, you've got something that you built yourself. You could use it to pull a wagon full of rocks around. You could make a little dozer for it. You know. Now, at the moment, I don't have a huge amount of funding for really any of that. But you're going to spend the money on something anyway. You know, so I'm looking at the motor, probably $100 at Harbor Freight, simple motor. Okay. Hydraulic parts don't seem to be that expensive by themselves. You know, just most people don't know how to build it. You know, so you take a hydraulic pump. I've seen them for $150. Hook it up to a reservoir tank. Hook it up to a couple control valves. Hook it up to 2 or 3 actuators. Now you got a backhoe. Maybe you could build a backhoe for $1,000. Probably. And when you're not using the backhoe, take those apart, run something else with it. One of the things I'm looking at is a post hole digger. All right. Now I'm not really building a fence, but being able to dig a hole down into the ground would be pretty useful for building my underground house. Because there's some areas that are really rocky. Well, you don't want to just dig into it with a backhoe. So you could make a post hole digger. You could make basically a hydraulic powered jackhammer. A couple things like that. Break up the rocks, scoop them out. Okay. Same basic parts. A little dozer would be really cool. And on parts of it too is, and I've been thinking about this for a while, if I built a new bumper on the back of my truck, I could see building the backhoe onto the back of the truck and then taking the power cube, putting it in the back of the truck, back the truck up near where I want to be, drop your stabilizers down and sit in the back of the truck and run your backhoe. Why not? You know, it's a 4x4 truck. I could put a blade on the truck that I built. I could basically, another idea that I had is little tractors have a thing called a 3-point hitch. You make your, whatever your implement is, a blade or something, and hang it off the back of your 3-point hitch. Well, if your hydraulics were in a cube in the back of the truck, hit a switch, blade goes up and down, you just drag it down the driveway, smooth out your driveway once in a while. You know, I'm looking at things now, and I'm also looking at the motorcycle is, that's a 40 horsepower motor just sitting there. It's not doing anything because I don't ride the motorcycle very much lately. Go-kart, dune buggy, make that a power system for running something else. You know, make a dune buggy that had a hydraulic system on it. Use the motor out of the motorcycle. Why not? Sun is about to go down, and this is a 30-minute clip. I think I'll stop talking. I did want to say, though, thanks to everybody who did subscribe. And Happy New Year, and thanks for following along. Got some big stuff coming for this next year. Stay tuned.